Hey, I'm Kai, and today I'm going to be checking out the Black Russian Rat by Zero Fret, an extreme fuzzy distortion blending the best parts of the Proco Rat and the Electro Harmonix Black Russian Big Muff. If you enjoyed that little clip, please do drop me a subscribe. It goes a long way towards helping me out and helps me check out all sorts of fun gear like this. So that was running my PRS S2 in drop C into the Black Russian Rat, then out to my Fractal FM3, where I have a simple patch loaded up, analog delay, Brit 800, ML Soundlab Mars M75 cabinet, and the big cloud reverb. Onto the overview of the pedal now. The Black Russian Rat is essentially a multi-rat pedal running into both the tone stack and the output booster of a Big Muff. On paper at least, this may fix the issues I was having with both the real Electro Harmonix Big Muff and the Proco Rat. I found that the Big Muff didn't have enough of a range of gain available, and I also found that the Rat didn't have enough output volume. There are 3 different clipping sections available via the toggle switch on the front face of this pedal. This goes between the standard vintage style Rat, the Turbo Rat, and a third mode that sits somewhere in between. I'm looking forward to digging into this one, so let's just get straight into some tones now. I kind of wanted to split the tones of this video up into 2 halves, so the first half is going to be with this PRS S2, running into that same fractal patch that I had earlier, but then just turning off all of the extra effects. Rather than the massive sounding cloud reverb in the fractal, I've instead swapped it out for the London plate, which is a lot more subtle. This should just help to fill out the stereo field a bit, make things sound a little bit more exciting, without getting too much in the way of the tone. Let's hear this one dry first. The first thing I should probably mention about this is that this pedal is incredibly responsive to how hard it's hitting the front end of the amplifier. This is equally true of the Fractal FM3 and the real amp. I quite like this one pushed beyond unity gain. With the clipping set to the stock mode, let's hear the range that each of these parameters have. I'll start with the tone knob in the sweet spot and then sweep through the sustain knob to hear the range of gain we have available first. As you can hear, there is a fairly wide range of gain available, however it's very true to the Rat sort of circuit, where you have a lot happening in the early stages of the gain knob, and then not too much happening beyond there. It goes into super blown out fuzzy territory pretty quick. The sustain is now set to a sort of fuzzy distortion-esque kind of thing, where you can still hear what's going on, so that I can now sweep through the tone knob. The tone knob is taken from the Big Muff and has a major range available to it. So obviously the tone knob and the sustain knob are going to interact with each other, and this isn't going to be a full true test of the range of each of them. However, hopefully it gives you a good idea as to what we're working with. You'll notice that the tone knob gets into that sort of HM2 upper grindy sort of territory quite easily when we turn that tone knob up past about halfway. While that's not something that I am a huge fan of, I do understand there is a wide cult appeal for this sort of thing, so that may be just what you're looking for. I'll now dial in the tone knob just to find the sweet spot for this tone and just play on it a little bit more. I do need to go through the different clipping options available in this pedal, and I found that the best way to hear these differences is to turn both the sustain and the tone up to about noon and set the volume to unity. I have just realised that I've done this entire thing so far in the turbo mode instead of the normal mode, so take that as what you will. I'm now going to sweep through all of them, starting from normal, then into turbo, then into the custom mode. I'm going to switch over from the turbo LED mode over to the standard normal mode. You'll notice this has a little bit less volume and a little bit less low end. This one really gets into that HM2 territory again, so I'll sweep through the tone knob on this one and then dial in a quick tone for it. The final mode here is the LED/Schottky mode, which should be a lot more aggressive than the other two modes. Once again, I'll show you the range of tone this has available, and then I'll dial in a separate tone for it. I think this one works really nicely in drop C. It sounds really good for 90s grungy sort of stuff, as expected since the DNA is based on a Rat and a Big Muff, but it also works really nicely for extreme heavy doom stuff, where it's just completely blown out, sludgy, thick, distorted sort of things. I do think that middle position, the turbo clipping option, is my favourite so far. Before I get into tuning down lower with my Balaguer Woodman, I'd like you to drop a comment down below letting me know which one of these tones was your favourite and how you would use this pedal. So I've swapped guitars out now. This is the Balaguer Woodman in drop A sharp. This also has the Evertune bridge, and this has got the Balaguer Feral set pickups. I will also switch out the raw amp tone for this. I'm going to switch over to the high watt model in the FM3 instead of the JCM 800 and see if we can work with a darker sort of bass tone. Of course, I'm going to quickly show what that one sounds like without the pedal engaged. I'll start with a low gain sort of tone setup on the 0 fret Black Russian Rat, and then I'll boost it with the Holy Island Audio Spectral Fire. And I want to find that spot between distortion and high gain and see if we can get a big fuzzy sort of thing going on with this before we go into the blown out wall tones. Lastly, I will of course push it into an extreme fuzz tone. So far, I'm feeling the PRS a little bit more so than the low-tuned Woodman here. However, I'm also generally not a huge fan of the pickups in this, as they are pretty boomy sounding. I'll switch back over to the PRS and we'll try out some more stacking options with the Spectral Fire. The reason why I picked the Spectral Fire is I was sort of hoping it would be able to boost the Black Russian Rat and get it away from those sort of HM2 territories, while also giving it enough gain to be super thick and saturated. I'll dial them in together with the Spectral Fire on a low gain boosted sort of thing first. This should mean that we can push the Black Russian Rat to a higher gain setting, and then we'll swap the roles. Okay, I've got them both set up nicely now, so let's hear what the Spectral Fire is doing first, then we'll hear what the Black Russian Rat is doing, and then we'll add them in together. Okay, let's now swap the roles and we'll have the Spectral Fire on a much higher gain and the 0 fret Black Russian Rat on a much lower gain setting. Again, I'll do the same sort of comparison. We'll hear the Spectral Fire, then we'll hear the Black Russian Rat, then we'll hear them both together. That was incredibly gnarly, really clanky, just a really nice, unique sounding guitar tone, which I think is the primary objective when you're dialing in weirdo pedals like this. Now, before I get into any sort of conclusion on this pedal, I need to mention that this is a sponsored demo, as the Zero Fret have sent me out the Black Russian Rat for demo and review purposes. Now, it's no secret that I think this pedal sounds absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favourite takes on the Rat pedal that I've tried so far. It's completely unique and doesn't really sound that much like a Rat, also doesn't sound that much like a Big Muff. It sort of sits in its own sort of realm. I'm not a huge fan of those high resonant peak grindy sort of guitar tones, and this does lean towards that in a lot of settings, but I did find that it was pretty easy to dial out most of the time. The sweep of the tone knob on this pedal is super versatile but not super predictable. It does get to a point where sort of 3 or 4 times across the sweep of the knob you change entirely, and it sort of shifts the frequencies rather than just cutting or boosting them. I do think pretty much all of my favourite tones of this pedal came with the tone knob at before noon, however that may just be my personal taste, the rig I was using, the guitars I'm using, whatever else. It's also not inherently a bad thing. If I found myself dialing the tone all the way to 0 and wishing that I could push it even further, then that would be a cause for concern. However, I never found that to be the case with this pedal. So that is everything that I've got for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and thank you for sticking around to the end. I had a ton of fun with this pedal, and I'm really excited to start messing around with it in some more contexts, trying it out through different amps, pairing it with different pedals and stuff, just to see where it best suits in my rig. I do think it may make it to my pedal board on the next rebuild though. That's all for this one though, so until next time, I've been Kai.